Hey everyone, welcome back to the Swiftly Sung Stories podcast. I'm Jen. I am your Swifty English teacher, and today we are starting our deep dive into Taylor's brand new album, The Life of a Showgirl. I was in the middle of my Taylor Swift 101 series, which I had hoped to complete before this new album came out, but I have 3 kids and a life and reality happens. So here we are. I know what you all want to talk about is this new album, which has stirred quite the controversy. So we are going to dive straight into that today and see what she's really saying. In my last video, I discussed Taylor's storytelling tactics and how she uses all of these narrative and literary devices, all these building blocks to create these really emotionally impactful stories. And when you're trying to get to the bottom of any piece of art, like this album, you really need to look for the theme. So for Taylor, there is no better place to look for the theme of any album than in the prologue. And she's done a prologue on every album since debut. I have all of those dissections of her prologues on my website, but the Life of a Showgirl prologue was a little bit different because we didn't get it all at once. It came piecemeal with different poems in each album variant. So within each poem, letters were capitalized that spelled out 1, 2, 3, etc. So if you put all of these poems together in order, you get this massive 6-stanza prologue poem. So if we want to understand the album as a whole, we have to put all of these pieces together. And each of these poems can kind of stand on its own, which forms, as Taylor calls it, this fractured mosaic of meaning. But if you thought the themes of this album were a little bit scattered, you are correct. And she hinted at this in this kind of fractured poem and by only giving us one little bit at a time in various versions of the album. There's been a really interesting theory floating around that each poem in each album variant corresponds to one episode of the docu-series, which comes out in December on Disney+. So 6 poems, 6 episodes. It's kind of an interesting theory. So let me know what you think after we go through these poems. Do they set the tone for a kind of chapter of her life or a chapter of creating and performing the tour? I don't know, but it's an intriguing theory. So I'm going to read for you one stanza at a time, then dissect each of them one by one to see what themes and motifs we can extract. This one is a little bit trickier than most of her prologues because it's more abstract and it's not as direct, but we will get there and we'll get there together. So the plan is prologue, find out the themes of the album, see what she's trying to say, and then we will go track by track and lyrically analyze all 12 songs on Showgirl in future episodes. Quick caveat, I'm not here to discover what Taylor Swift did. I'm here to discover what the art does and what the art says, and I generally don't talk about Taylor's personal life unless it provides really crucial context that we need to understand the lyrics. And also, everything I'm going to extract from her writing is just my opinion as a writer and as a former English teacher. That's my lens through which I view all of Taylor's writing. So while I'm not going to say in my opinion over and over, just know that it is. And your opinion may be different, and that is the whole point. That's why art is so fun to analyze, because it can mean different things to different people. Okay, let's go straight into Taylor's prologue poem for The Life of a Showgirl. Welcome to Swiftly Sung Stories, where we unpack the Taylor Swift universe one era, album, and lyric at a time. Think of it like English class, but it's all Taylor Swift and none of the boring stuff. I'm Jen, your Swifty English teacher, and class is in session, so come on in and meet me in the margins. Here's poem 1. This was on the Baby That's Show Business variant. You woke up branded with the lines of pillow creases, thunderbolted tree roots across your cheek. In turn, last night's mascara stains the Ivory Hotel pillowcase, each one leaving their mark on the other. Looks like you're even. You say good morning to them when you walk in, and they don't correct you as they spray vodka on the armpits of the dancers' costumes. We learn these tricks along the way, the flesh-toned bandage wrap covered by skin-colored fishnets, because you will cover the wound, no matter how deep it is. No one ever knew. And baby, that's show business for you. You woke up branded. That is the first line of this entire album and really of this new era. And combined with the title, The Life of the Showgirl, she's setting up the major themes right from the jump. There's waking up, as in coming into a big realization or epiphany, and then there's branded, something leaving its mark on you forever changed. So you woke up branded with the lines of pillow creases, thunderbolted tree roots across your cheek. We're inside this day in the life of a showgirl, and we begin where she begins, waking up in a hotel room in some unnamed city. But this city, this show, this life have left their mark on her even in rest. Her language here is intentional. She's branded by the soft pillows, which juxtaposes rest and relaxation with pain. Something that's supposed to be gentle or soft is really not that way at all. These pillowcases leave thunderbolted tree roots across her face. And we've all had that messy wake up, right? Where you slept really hard and wake up with these indentations all over your face where they take forever to go away. But she's described these marks as thunderbolted tree roots, which alludes to two things, both the tree and the thunderbolt. So the tree represents growth, growing and branching out from your roots. And then the thunderbolt alludes to lightning strikes, which she will also talk about in Opalite. So if you put these two together, it feels like sudden growth or a big change that she didn't expect. In turn, last night's mascara stains the Ivory Hotel pillowcase. Each one leaving their mark on the other. Looks like you're even. So this soft place to land may have left its mark on her, but she also leaves her mark on it. Here's where Showgirl Taylor meets human Taylor. Her mascara from last night's show stains the pillow, which is a metaphor for her showgirl life, making an imprint on her personal life. This is something she's grappled with since Reputation, the battle of the two selves. There is not one without the other. And she'll continue to contrast these dueling parts of herself for the rest of this poem and the rest of the album. You say good morning to them when you walk in and they don't correct you, she goes on. It's not morning, it's probably afternoon, but she's working late because she's a singer and working the night shift of a showgirl. Just like any night shift, time becomes distorted. It's where midnights become my afternoons. But they don't correct you. This also alludes to this power structure, right? Where you don't correct the boss. Because she is, after all, the boss. She's the head of this whole operation. It's all under her thumb, and she knows this. So they don't correct her on the time, as they spray vodka on the armpits of dancers' costumes. This is an old showbiz trick that gets the odors out of difficult to launder garments, and it really works if you ever need to use it. We learn these tricks along the way, she says. So these are the tricks of the trade. But she's not only talking about costuming, as we're about to see. The flesh-toned bandage wrap covered by skin-colored fishnets, because you will cover the wound no matter how deep it is. So the wound is all the pain it took to get here, and all the pain that she takes in while living this life. So she's using physical bruises as a metaphor for emotional bruises, which is a really common metaphor in her lyrics, and it always has been. So she has these scars, and she has to put on this armor, her showgirl costume, to cover them up so that the public doesn't see. She can't be seen as too vulnerable or too delicate, because this is a show that people paid good money to see. Taylor Swift is a show that people paid good money to see. So the real life human Taylor has bruises and scars that must be plastered over for her to enter this showgirl character, both emotionally and physically. She can do it with a broken heart, and she'll still put on the greatest show the world has ever seen, but it's cloaked inside this armor of invincibility. No one ever knew, she says, and baby, that's show business for you. So she's wrapped herself in this deceptively realistic flesh-toned layers that hide the real person underneath. She's clad herself in armor, not letting her real scars and bruises, both literal and metaphorical, show. And that's exactly what show business requires, because the crowd will always be chanting more, not caring or knowing how much the real person inside the costume has to give. They're here for the show. They're not here for the girl. That's the end of poem 1. Let's get into poem 2. Here's the second poem, and it was on the Sweat and Vanilla Perfume variant and on the standard variant. Coffee, stretch, piano keys, vocal warm-ups in a locker room shower, eyelash glue, a photo of him on the mirror, sweat and vanilla perfume, the cracking of joints and the distant beat of a drum, the curtain call, the monotonous thrill of it all. Plan it out so it doesn't look planned, 10 different backup plans. If your red bottom heel breaks, you will keep strutting, balancing on the balls of your blistered feet. Know your exits, shoulders back, eyes up, hit your marks, your winks, sparks. Tell them a story like it's an intimate dinner party. The looks on their wondrous faces, Their expressions like mood rings. Isn't it all so majestic? Of course it is. It's a lot of other things too. So it's coffee, stretch, piano keys, vocal warm-ups, in a locker room shower. We're now inside her morning routine, inside this day in a life. She's prepping to become Showgirl Taylor later in the day and doing all of these things that every performer has to do. She's just a human and showing us that behind the scenes of this production, it's not all glitz and glamour. A locker room especially isn't glamorous, and combined with the stretching, it reminds us that the Eras Tour was really an athletic feat. It's messy and it's sweaty and it's laborious, and it only looks glam from the outside. Eyelash glue, a photo of him on the mirror, she continues. So eyelash glue isn't glamorous either, and it's just really another piece of her armor, her costume that's required. But as she transitions into character, putting on her lashes, she keeps this reminder close, the photo of, I'm assuming, her boyfriend on the mirror. But in this mirror, reflecting back at her right now is her real self and her private life and the people who matter to her. But soon as she transforms, looking back at her in the mirror will be this showgirl alter ego. There's a ton of dressing table and mirror imagery in the marketing of this album, and I think that this is what it's alluding to, this fractured identity, the two parts of herself that sometimes get along but are sometimes at war with each other. It's the battle between Taylor Swift Inc., this monster she's created, versus Taylor Swift the human, who has human needs and desires and a private life. So we have all these visual details of what this preparation looks like, but then we get a scent and a sound. Sweat and vanilla perfume, the cracking of joints, and the distant beat of a drum. These smells and these sounds are visceral, and it reminds us again that this show isn't glam. It's stinky behind the scenes. And among these odors backstage, there's joints cracking. We can imagine all these dancers stretching and limbering up. And this is taxing. This is an exhausting endeavor that makes your joints ache. But I love this juxtaposition of their internal creaks and then the drums outside. They echo one another. And it's like the drums are beckoning them to the stage and they can feel this excitement in their bones. Then we reach the big moment, the curtain call, she says. But it's not all excitement and fans screaming. This is just her day-to-day life, or what she calls the monotonous thrill of it all. This is a really interesting oxymoron. Can something be both thrilling and monotonous? I guess yes, if you do it enough times, it just becomes muscle memory. But then I'd also imagine that there's this thrill that is unique to each night and each show, stepping out on this stage. Even though the performance might become muscle memory, I would imagine that thrill never really fades. Plan it out so it doesn't look planned, she goes on. 10 different backup plans. We know that Taylor is nothing if not a meticulous planner, and the Eras Tour was no different. She and her team probably had a contingency plan for nearly everything because the show must go on. If your red bottom heel breaks, you will keep strutting, she says, balancing on the balls of your blistered feet. I think here she's calling back to a particular moment on the tour when this actually did happen, and she picked up the broken heel and tossed it into the crowd. But this also references long story short. If the shoe fits, walk in it till your high heels break. The shoe metaphorically fits. She loves performing. But even if the things that keep her steady crumble away, the show must go on. She doesn't have a choice. She's the showgirl here, and she can't fall apart if something goes wrong. Know your exits, shoulders back, eyes up, she continues. Hit your marks, your winks, sparks. Now we're sort of inside her internal monologue on stage where she directs her own movements and moments. But the exits aren't only exit stage left, they also allude to those backup plans. And I think it's not just the backup plans for this production. Combined with all of the exit sign imagery that we've seen in this album rollout, it's becoming symbolic of something, and what exactly that is open for interpretation. But what I feel like it is how do you exit this life, this character? Can you be both the showgirl and just the girl? And I think this is what this album is really grappling with. How do you have a normal, grounded life when you're so high up on this pedestal? Will it take falling off the pedestal, or can you gracefully dismount. And we'll see these themes throughout the album, which we will get into more in my track-by-track analysis. But here's my favorite line. Tell them a story like it's an intimate dinner party. Taylor is, above all else, a storyteller. She is our narrator, our protagonist, our author. But speaking in this particular line of the poem is Showgirl Taylor. She's putting on a performance. She may have written these songs about her life, but in the end, they are built to be entertainment. And that's the line between Showgirl Taylor and human Taylor. And it's a tightrope that she's always had to walk. Her life isn't our entertainment, but some of us think it is. The line blurs. She makes us feel like we know her, and that's what's really hooked us. She's been telling us stories like it's an intimate dinner party. But in reality, we are not at that dinner party. We don't know her at all. As she said in the Reputation prologue, we think we know someone, but the truth is we only know the version of them that they have chosen to show us. The looks on their wondrous faces, she goes on, their expressions like mood rings. So she's reading the room, she's taking it all in, and she knows that any day now, their mood could turn sour like before. This is her fear, and this mood ring and gemstone imagery is going to come back around in opalite. Isn't it all so majestic, she asks herself. Of course it is. It's a lot of other things too. She takes this moment and tastes it, and on one hand, she's in awe of what she built, but it's a lot of other things too, and those things she won't name out loud, at least not for us. We can fill in the blanks here, but I think what she's getting at is that it looks majestic at first glance or from the outside, but if we really knew her life and knew what it took to get there and to stay there, we probably wouldn't call it majestic at all. We might call it beautiful, rapturous, and frightening, as she will get to in a later poem. That's the end of the second poem. Let's get into the third. This is the third poem. It was on the Crowd is Your King variant. Remember the city? You've been here before, in another life, on another tour. Remember her? She's got a mortgage now. Straight teeth where there'd been metal brackets, standing with her 8-year-old daughter. You mouth, I know you, in the millisecond gap in your choreography. To you, she will look exactly the same age as the first time you saw her. She will always be 14 and a half. Remember. Lock right back into the footwork. Any missed step is a misstep. You must remember everything, but mostly this. The crowd is your king, who has ruled over you for centuries, benevolently, for the most part. So remember this city, she begins the third poem. You've been here before, in another life, on another tour. We're still inside her internal monologue as Showgirl Taylor on the stage, but she's setting up this juxtaposition of past versus present self that is really what most of this stanza is about. Past Taylors have been here before on another tour, but she makes those other versions of herself feel far away. That's not who she is anymore, because this Taylor is more mature and has learned hard lessons, and she has the objectivity of hindsight. But as this current version of Taylor, Showgirl Taylor, is on stage, she's recalling past versions of herself, and these worlds are about to collide in the present. Remember her, she asks herself. She's got a mortgage now, so she spies someone she recognizes in the crowd. But remember her, this person in the crowd, also means, do you remember who you used to be and where you came from? So she's using this real, maybe fictional person in the crowd to ponder how far she's come. She sees this person. She notices straight white teeth where there'd been metal brackets, standing with her 8-year-old daughter. This person has grown up into a different version of herself, and the braces are gone, and she has a family of her own. But she's still intimately familiar. This person in the crowd feels like it represents past Taylor in her past life, long before the life of a showgirl took over. That Taylor grew up and had to be an adult, just like the people from her small hometown grew up and moved on. But we always remember where we came from. And this is another common theme Taylor writes about: the pain of leaving childhood behind and wondering if you'll ever get that magic back. And she's going to cover it again in this album, in Eldest Daughter, and in Ruin the Friendship. You mouth, I know you, in the millisecond gap in your choreography. So human Taylor takes over for a split second when she's supposed to be in showgirl mode. In seeing this person from her past, she also sees her past self. To you, she will look exactly the same age as the first time you saw her. She will always be 14 and a half. What she's getting at here is that we carry these different versions of ourselves with us as we go along. And age 14 and a half, by the way, is the age Taylor was when she signed her first record deal. Part of her will always be that young, vulnerable girl in a risky business. Then Showgirl Taylor taps her on the shoulder and snaps her out of it. Remember. This is both remember how far you've come and get your ass back into character. Lock right back into the footwork, she reminds herself. So she's pushing past Taylor and present Taylor aside and stepping back into Showgirl mode. Any missed step is a misstep. This is, after all, a show. The real Taylor can come out to play when Showgirl Taylor has taken her final bow. You must remember everything. She says both about her choreography and her life, but mostly this. The crowd is your king, who has ruled over you for centuries, benevolently for the most part. She's reminding herself why she does this in the first place. It's because of the crowd. It's because of her fans. It's because of us. But the crowd is your king ties into similar metaphors that Taylor has used since debut, her career as her castle and her kingdom. And she's used this so many times. It began in Long Live, but then she's used it in Look What You Made Me Do, This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, New Romantics, The Archer, Castles Crumbling, Long Story Short, Bejeweled, Call It What You Want, and in this new album, On the Fate of Ophelia. But in this long-running metaphor, she's never revealed who the king is in this scenario, and this is the first time we get to see that it's us. We have ruled over her for metaphorical centuries, benevolently for the most part, meaning that we've always been the one that she reports to, even though it's not always a cordial relationship. But what's most interesting about this metaphor, the crowd is your king, is that it flips the script on how her audience views her. Many Swifties see us as our queen, our mother, and not the other way around. For Showgirl Taylor, we rule her heart. But for human Taylor, it might be a different story altogether. That's the end of poem 3, and then she'll go on in poem 4 to describe the less benevolent parts of her monarchy. Here's poem 4, and it was on the shiny bug variants. Perhaps someday they will despise you again. Perhaps it is not a matter of if, but when. They'll reassess your merits and then take a magnifying glass to the shiny bug, deflate all the heroes they had decided she was, and maybe they'll do it just because. But you live by a strict code. Never believe your own mythology. Never type your name into the search bar. Let the wolves howl all they want. The moon should never howl back. You know if you play, it's a losing game. So you keep yourself too busy to even learn what's their name's name. And these are the reasons you are still somewhat sane. So perhaps someday they will despise you again, is the beginning of the 4th stanza, which is referring to the crowd from the last poem. Perhaps the tides will turn and her kingdom, her fans, will revolt. Perhaps it's not a matter of if, but when. This recalls her very public cancellation that occurred between 1989 and Reputation. It will happen again, she surmises, and she's right. The public is fickle, and any missed step is a misstep. The crowd may be her king, but just like any historic monarchy, we're also her judge, jury, and executioner. They'll reassess your merits and then take a magnifying glass to the shiny bug. So she worries that the time will come again where the public will turn on her. Will reassess her merits as if merits are emotional and not based on hard work. But the shiny bug metaphor, for which the album variant is named, is really apropos. She is our shiny bug. She's pretty and unique and she's interesting to study, but she's still a bug that can be crushed on a whim. Or we could turn that magnifying glass to the sun and poof, it's all over. At any time, we can deflate all the heroes they had decided she was, and maybe they'll do it just because. She's painting the public as these mercurial monarchs who can demand off with her head at any given moment. Sometimes we see her as our hero, and sometimes we make her the villain. It changes like the weather. But you live by a strict code, she explains. Never believe your own mythology. So she creates rules for herself to survive this life. Never believe the stories other people tell about you. Only believe the stories you tell yourself and what you know to be true. In other words, don't go on the internet and don't listen to the incessant chatter about the shiny bug. Never type your name into the search bar, she warns. Let the wolves howl all they want. The moon should never howl back. We are the wolves who howl at the moon because that's just what we do. We talk about her, we whine, we complain, and voice every opinion we've ever had because we are a pack. But if the moon, the subject of our howling, was to bark back, it would never end. It would just be endlessly noisy and would turn into a squabble. And in this battle of egos, we don't have anything to lose. She's the only one who has something to lose, and it's us. You know, if you play, it's a losing game, so you keep yourself too busy to even learn what's their name's name. She's saying that people can say whatever they want, and she'll try to just stay as unbothered as possible, or unbothered till she's not. She keeps herself busy building her empire and living by the strict code not to listen to the chatter, and these are the reasons you're still somewhat sane, she says. She's made her own rules to the game in order to survive, and most of them revolve around living in ignorant bliss. It's the only way not to lose your mind or become the mad woman in the attic. That's the end of poem 4, and in the following poem, she's going to steer away from the things that drag her down and towards the things that lift her up. Here's poem 5, and this was on the Tiny Bubbles in Champagne variants. He ran to his car from work to catch the flight. Missed the first act, but somehow it's better this way. It's just right. Because you get to watch him make his way through the masses, parting the crowd like some neon Moses in a sequin sea. He is a magnet and a trampoline, the tiny bubbles in champagne. Haphazard but precise, he crash-landed next to you, reckless but never with your heart. If he's in, you are too. You've begun to feel that every song before was just a prayer, a wish list. He is not what you've been waiting for. He is more. Why you held out, why you left, and nothing aches suddenly. He has that effect. So she begins the 5th stanza. He ran to his car from work to catch the flight. So we're still in this day in the life, and our showgirl is still on stage. While she's performing, this male character is making his way to her. He's running to her. This seems simple, but it contrasts so drastically with so many of Taylor's previous lyrics, where she was always either the pursuer or the deserted. Think about back and forth from New York, sneaking in your bed, but he watched me watch the front door all night, willing you to come. This time, she's not chasing the love is running to her, and he's trying desperately to make it on time. Miss the first act, she says, but somehow it's better this way. It's just right. He missed not only the first act of the show, but the first act of her life. He's missed all of the heartbreaks, all of the pain, all the struggles in the music industry, but somehow it's better this way, she says. What I take from this is that she's learned the lessons she needed in order to accept a love that is truly reciprocal and accept a love that she doesn't have to chase. She had to learn these lessons and go through all of these things to understand what a true partnership. So she's saying this love on this night and always is just right, because you get to watch him make his way through the masses, she says. So a million eyes are on her, but her eyes are only on him. And he is parting the crowd like some neon Moses in a sequin sea. So biblically, Moses parted the Red Sea, leading the Israelites from metaphorical death to rebirth. The seas of the crowd have parted here, which we could read into more deeply if we really want to. But in comparing his entrance through the crowd to Moses means that she's been metaphorically reborn. And in the first track, she uses a similar metaphor in The Fate of Ophelia. He dug me out of my grave. He is a magnet and a trampoline, she says, of this new love, the tiny bubbles in champagne. So he's alluring and he's attractive, but he's also fun and childlike. He's the life of the party and something to celebrate. The tiny bubbles in champagne means that he's sort of this essence of celebration or the essence of happiness. Champagne without bubbles is just, bad wine. Haphazard but precise, he crash-landed next to you. Reckless but never with your heart. So this romance wasn't planned. There were no 10 different backup plans. He came in like an asteroid. But it's important to note that he didn't crash into her. He crashed next to her. This is the opposite of another lyric. I crashed into you like so many wrecks do, from Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus. So this isn't a wreck. It's kismet, or it's alchemy. It may have been haphazard and reckless in the way it began, but that's not how it will end, because unlike the others, she says he is careful with her heart. If he's in, you are too, she reminds herself. You've begun to feel that every song before was just a prayer, she says. So she's looking back over her past stories of heartbreak and love and pain. But one particular song comes to mind. Please, I've been on my knees. Change the prophecy. Don't want money, just someone who wants my company. The prophecy she sang was really a wish list. She put it out into the universe, praying for the right partner, and the universe delivered, and then some. He is not what you've been waiting for. He is more. He is why you held out, and he is why you left. The idea of him is really why she never settled down before this. And the idea of him is why she left previous relationships when she was unfulfilled. Because she had this premonition that something better was on the horizon. And there was something better on the horizon. The prophecy has been fulfilled. And nothing aches suddenly, she says. He has that effect. So suddenly the empty parts of her no longer hurt. Her scars no longer cause pain, and her heartbreaks don't matter because, in her view, they were all fated to lead to this. Suddenly, all that pain captured in album after album is gone. The scars were lessons, and the lessons lead here. That's the close of poem 5, and in the 6th, she will tie all of these stanzas together. Here is the 6th poem, and this was on all of the album variants. Tonight, all these lives converge here, the mosaics of laughter and cocktails of tears, where fraternal souls sing identical things. And it's beautiful, it's rapturous, it is frightening. It's worth everything it has cost you, and even at your darkest or drunkest, you wouldn't say any different, would you? You would choose all of it again, no matter how the story ends, with the ugliest booze or the loveliest bouquet. They say that love is a choice you make every single day. And that is how you love the life of a showgirl. So tonight, all these lives converge here. All the lives she's outlined in the previous lines, her personal life, her showgirl life, her past life, the crowd's life, her lover's life, they've all combined to make this moment and this person, both the showgirl and the human. They converge here for this narrator, who is still on stage, she's still performing, but for us, the reader or the listener, they converge here on this album. This album will therefore be about all of these lives that she's lived. And really the lives that we've lived as we've watched this life of a showgirl play out before our eyes. This kaleidoscope of stories are the mosaics of laughter and cocktails of tears, where fraternal souls sing identical things. At this point in the poem, she's really both Taylor the showgirl and Taylor the human being. It all adds up to this life, this career that she's crafted so carefully. And this fractured identity is reflected in all of this kaleidoscope imagery of the album. Somehow it all adds up to this. It looks different from different angles. It looks different from the outside than it does from the inside. So she looks around at this life, and it's beautiful, it's rapturous, it's frightening, she says. She's both in awe of what she's built and scared of what it's become. We are the monster, and she is Dr. Frankenstein. She holds immense power to create, the power to entertain, but she's also given us the singular power to destroy. Still, she says, it's worth everything it has cost you. She's given up pieces of herself to get where she is today because that's what the music industry does. It demands a blood sacrifice. Even at your darkest or drunkest, she ponders, you couldn't say any different, would you? Even in her darkest nights of the soul, probably in midnights and TTPD, she'd never say it wasn't worth it. Or would she? You would choose all of it again, she's reassuring herself, no matter how the story ends with the ugliest booze or the loveliest bouquet. If she could rewind to the beginning, she'd go through all of the pain all over again if it led her to the same place. But how does this story end? How will her career end? And how do you maintain a private life when you've made so much public? That's what this poem seems to be grappling with the most. How do you not fall off the pedestal when you're too big to climb down? How do you maintain privacy in the harsh spotlight? Here she's saying she'll be okay either way, no matter if she's ushered off stage or given a 10-minute standing ovation at the end of the show. They say that love is a choice you make every single day, she closes, and that is how you love the life of a showgirl. If love is a choice, and this life is a choice, then she chooses to love this life. She doesn't say that is how you live the life of a showgirl. No, it's how you love the life of a showgirl. And she's drawing this distinction. It's not a life that is inherently lovable. It's hard and it's grueling and it's sometimes impossible, but she chose it and she continues to choose it every single day. She is the showgirl, but she's also so many other things. And can this kaleidoscope of identities exist? Maybe and maybe not, but that's what this album is going to tackle. If we're just here for the show, then what does that mean for the girl? All right, that is the end of Taylor's prologue poem, and I hope it lays a good foundation for what's next. We are going to dive into this album track by track, and I'll do it in the exact same way I just did for this poem, just line by line, breaking down meanings and alternative interpretations. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you like this, please hit the like button and subscribe and share with your friends. I'm just starting this podcast and every little bit helps. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next track. That's it for this chapter of Swiftly Sung Stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps other Swifties find their way here. I'm Jen, and I had a marvelous time reading everything with you. See you next time.